Welcome to the PR Maven podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Welcome to the PR Maven podcast, episode number 174. Presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the 65-step Marshall Plan strategic process. For those of you who are new to the show, I'm your host, Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I want to welcome you. And with me today, our guest is Scott Dunn, president of the Maine Maple Producers Association. Welcome to the PR Maven podcast, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's nice to have you. So Scott Dunn started making maple syrup in Vermont with his family as a kid, where he also grew up as a ski racer, which is something that my kids did, so I kind of connect with him on that. And in high school, a neighbor had a sugar house up the road from Scott in Vermont, and he asked him to help him after school. And years later, Scott started making syrup on a small scale, and he has now grown to 1,600 taps and has direct-to-consumer and wholesale accounts all over Maine. His website sales have grown tremendously in the last 2 years, which coincides with the pandemic. Scott was elected as the president of the Maine Maple Producers Association 3 years ago at the start of the pandemic, and has worked to support the producers and grow the Maine brand. Their signature event, now in its 39th year, is Maine Maple Sunday. And each year, sugar houses open their doors for a maple celebration statewide on the fourth Sunday in March. And we'll talk more about that. But first, Scott, tell us about your history with maple products and how did you get involved with the industry?
So, like you said, making syrup as a kid with my family and then helping my neighbor in the backyard. I moved to Maine for college and stayed, and then one day while ice fishing with friends, one of my buddies was talking about making maple syrup, and I'm like, I can do that again. So I went home, walked the woods around my house, and found that we did have a decent amount of maple trees. So I sold the idea of a sugar house to my wife, the idea that we could have a place to store other things as well as make maple syrup, and then it's just grown every year since then. We've added onto the sugar house multiple times. Maple Sunday events keep getting larger and larger, and it's just become kind of a passion. I got involved with the maple producers because I saw the need that if I wanted to grow my business, I needed to be able to influence the decisions that were being made on a statewide basis. And then I guess when you work hard, people follow you and you end up getting elected to be officials.
Yeah, they always say if you want to get stuff done, you should ask a busy person.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's great that you were out ice fishing. And where were you, or is that a secret spot where you go ice fishing?
Lake Arrowhead. It's a big lake.
Nice, yeah. I thought you were going to say we were out ice fishing and we made some like pancakes and had maple syrup on them. But so the Maine Maple Products Association, you're the president of that, and basically that's a marketing organization, right?
So I represent a little over 200 producers, both American and Canadian producers, hobby-sized producers in the backyard making a few gallons a year all the way up to hundreds of thousands of taps in the North Maine woods in the Jackman area. So we represent a broad spectrum of producer. We promote the Maine brand of maple syrup as well as support the producers. That became more interesting with the COVID pandemic, trying to get out safe operating guidelines, that type of thing. But we've also been able to really grow the brand as people were home, cooking more, using syrup, and we were able to connect with them as it really is the healthier alternative for sweeteners.
Yeah, and you were mentioning how you're working with some of the breweries to make maple flavored beer.
Yep, several of our producers are working with Maine's tremendous growth in the micro beer market, whether it be maple flavored beers, barrel aged maple beers, that type of thing. And that's really a market that they go together very well. You bring in outside people in that have never had maple, and then they're trying it in beer, and then they're bringing it back to different parts of the country.
Yeah, I would like to try some of that. Next time we get together, we'll have to have some. So, Scott, what is your favorite way to cook with maple syrup? And do you like to cook with your family and friends?
I do. My favorite is a maple chocolate chip cookie. Just using maple sugar in it. I mean, you really can't go wrong with a chocolate chip cookie. But if you want to win a contest, you use maple sugar because it just enhances the flavor that much of that cookie. And there's always cookies on my counter, and I eat them by the handful.
That's funny. Oh, so you're saying maple sugar as opposed to maple syrup.
So you can use both, but you can use maple sugar as a replacement. The simple way to make maple sugar is you just remove more of the water out of the syrup, bringing up the sugar content, and it dries out and makes a sugar. Similar to a brown sugar consistency, that you have to reduce the amount of sugar because you'll take more liquid to do it because it's a drier sugar than regular white sugar.
So you guys sell that as well?
Yep.
Yeah, maple sugar.
So the interesting thing about maple sugar is really that's how maple syrup first started to be made in the United States. The Indians made maple sugar because that was the way that they could store it to be shelf stable. Whereas if it was still in a liquid form, it would have molded through the summer. So they would make maple sugar, add a little bit of water, and then they'd have maple syrup again later in the year.
Ah, it's fascinating. I never knew that. So, yeah, and there's a website. We should talk about the website for the Maine Maple Producers.
MaineMapleProducers.com. It has everything, the health benefits, producer listings. So if you have a producer in your area or if you don't know if there's some that's there, as well as the Maine Maple Sunday map. There's generally right around 100 producers. Some of them are still signing up right now for Maine Maple Sunday. So MaineMapleProducers.com/Maple Sunday brings you to a map of all the producers. Now, each producer does have a different offering as well as ours. So if you're going to go out on Maple Sunday, make sure to check the map, look up your favorite producer or a new one to go and look at and see what they have to offer.
And this year, 2022, that's going to be on March 26th. Is that
March
correct?
26th and 27th. Some producers do Saturday and Sunday, but Maple Sunday is the 27th. So,
okay. It's always the fourth Sunday of March.
Always the fourth Sunday in March. Yep.
Right.
And this is the 39th year.
Wow. That's really incredible. And in full disclosure, I should say that Marshall Communications, my agency, is honored to be working with the Maple Producers Association.
It's been a great partnership for several years now. Working with people that are from the state makes it easy because they understand what we're trying to market as well.
Yeah. Well, we do understand that Maine brand. So we're going to continue in a moment with more from Scott Dunn. But first, I want to remind you about how to get access to my latest book, Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand. If you go to prmaven.com/giveaway, you can download a free copy. And now we're going to hear from my friend Mike Duguay.
After reading PR Works, I really started to think about how marketing actually works. And I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but what I realized is that each platform nowadays that we use out there in digital media and social media has its own nuance and also quirks to it. And understanding how they're used is exceedingly important. Because when you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail. And you can't approach it that way in marketing. And that's where I think Nancy's brilliance really shined in PR Works. I think Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand is really sort of the manifesto of understanding that there's many different levels to marketing. It's on your personal side of your brand, how actually you express yourself through business, but also what people hear you saying and what they see out there in the public eye as well. So I think what's really important there, that's really the blueprint of how you go about using these new social media platforms, but also to express who you are as a human being. Because people want to see you authentically and genuinely working with not only what you do, but also with the customers. And Nancy, on a personal level, I think that's who she is. She embodies that approach.
Welcome back to the PR Maven podcast, and we're here talking with Scott Dunn. And the podcast is also available on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And we're actually at a new location today here at the studio in Portland. I'm very excited to be recording in a professional sound studio, which is really awesome. I hope you've noticed the difference. So, Scott, what do you think the Maine Maple brand represents in the hearts and minds of consumers?
I think it's knowing their producers. Our producers put a tremendous amount of pride into their product. Everything from the way they care for the woods and the trees, into their sugar houses, and really the final product. It's made with passion and pride. And being able to connect with that really makes people enjoy maple syrup that much more because they have their people. It's nice to hear stories when families come and they're like, we brought maple syrup home and my daughter would need it because it wasn't yours. So the families, especially the kids, really buy into how it's made, the story of how it's made, and that has really grown the brand for a lot of producers.
Yeah, well, the whole trend with farm to table now, especially parents want their children to understand that food just doesn't come from the grocery store. It originates somewhere.
Right, and maple syrup is really the healthier alternative for processed sugars, whereas at the end of the day, all we do to make maple syrup is we remove the water and caramelize the sugars with the heat from the fire. So we don't add anything to it, we just remove water. And then you get the natural antioxidants as well as the minerals that come out of the land. So it really is a healthier sweetener for anything, whether it's including it in your coffee, baking. It's for more than just pancakes.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of the contests, there was maple bacon, which was really amazing. I think that in a Bloody Mary, a piece of maple bacon would be about as close to heaven as anything I can imagine. So, Scott, what is your hope and vision for the future of Maine Maple?
It's to make it's really to get the consumers to understand how great the product is and that Maine makes a great product. While we may be number 3 in production in the country, we really make a product that is superior because of the craftsmanship that goes into it, the pride of the producers, as well as the trees in the land. Maple syrup will taste a little bit different. A lot of people can't taste it, and it depends on the land that it's made from and the minerals that come out of the soil, and Maine has a lot of that.
That's interesting. I would have never thought that. And of course, there's people that are like sommeliers with wine, and they can taste the difference with maple syrup, right?
The same, yeah. I mean, if you just taste some, you'll be like, it all tastes good. But if you taste a lot of maple syrup, you can pick up on little subtleties, whether it's a butterier flavor or a stronger, more robust maple flavor, more than just the grade. But you can definitely taste a difference.
Can you taste the difference?
If I've eaten a lot in a hurry, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. That's really interesting. So, Scott, is there a book, a website, or an app that's been helpful to you personally and professionally, and why?
So I didn't really read many books on it. I more so went to classes. You can do something with maple pretty much any time of the year. There's a class or a different function you can go to that's maple related that different professionals, researchers are doing, and that's how you can improve your product, whether it's going to Vermont. The University of Vermont has a maple program that puts out a lot of great information, as well as going and talking to your favorite sugar maker about how they do it and learning from them. I've been on a lot of tours of sugar houses, and I take something away from every one of them and bring them back to my operation to make us better in what we do.
I was even talking with a chef the other day who makes a maple pizza. And I thought, I've never heard of that, but
yeah, there's maple barbecue sauces. Just you can use that, say, on like that pizza, and just the little subtleties. If you're looking to enhance a dish, maple syrup can do that to take an ordinary dish into a great dish.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. So, Scott, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you further?
So, MaineMapleProducers.com. You can, the contact tab, my contact information is there, as well as if they need to contact me directly, DunnFamilyMaple.com.
And that's DUNN, FamilyMaple.com, or DunnFamilyMaple@gmail.com for your email. Yeah. Well, this has been really fascinating, Scott, and I'm really excited about Maine Maple Weekend.
It's coming quick. It's going to be a good year. Some producers have already made syrup. We boiled Saturday night and made some syrup already, so the season's upon us already.
Yeah, so the weather does impact the timing of the season. So are we having a good winter for maple?
It's about average right now for when
Yeah.
we start. Normally we tell producers, especially new producers that are getting into making syrup, kind of have Valentine's Day for your target of when to be ready to make syrup, and the weather patterns are there right now. It's a little bit colder early season, but then as we get into March, you can really start making a lot of syrup in a hurry.
Oh, that'll be great. Well, this has been really fascinating, and I'm really glad that you joined me here at the studio in Portland. And if you have any more questions you'd like to ask me, you can email me at nancy@prmaven.com. And I hope everybody has a great day. PR Maven Nation. Thanks for listening to this episode of the PR Maven podcast. I invite you to share a review of the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation on Facebook. It's free to join, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you use an Alexa device, use your Alexa app to search the Skills and Games section to find and enable the PR Maven Podcast Flash Briefing. This will give you access to exclusive content and more PR and marketing advice. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.